Nothing has brought me greater joy than watching the Walt Disney Company absolutely panic over the last few weeks. They're mad at South Park because they're making fun of their woke ideologies, constantly race swapping or religion swapping everything in their movies.
It's a brand new exclusive event with all your favorite South Park characters.
I had explosive diarrhea all night. Dude, school is going to be so awesome today.
Oh, hamburgers.
I like big boobs.
How does this even make any sense?
It makes perfect sense. I think the problem is you.
Nothing has brought me greater joy, greater vindication, and greater entertainment in the chaotic circus of Hollywood than watching the Walt Disney Company, once hailed as the untouchable empire of dreams, the home of magic, the sanctuary of fairy tales and family memories, absolutely unravel in public panic over the last few weeks, flailing against a cultural wave that no longer bows to their self-proclaimed authority, because for all their power, their wealth, their history, and their brand, they are still no match for the sharp, unfiltered, unapologetic satire of South Park, a show that for decades has dared to pierce through the glossy veneers of institutions, celebrities, politicians, and corporations, exposing the hypocrisy and contradictions that everyone else is too afraid to say out loud. And this time, their latest episode, titled Into the Panderverse, has ripped straight through the heart of Disney's newest obsession, the so-called woke strategy of race swapping, gender swapping, and ideology bending every single one of their iconic properties until the soul of the story is unrecognizable, the characters stripped of their essence, and the audience left alienated, confused, or worse, mocked for daring to question whether this is really the best way forward for art, creativity, and culture. Because while Disney executives try to spin this narrative as progress, as diversity, as representation, South Park has stepped in to declare what millions have whispered behind closed doors. This isn't diversity, this is pandering, this is checkbox activism, this is corporate manipulation masquerading as virtue, and to make the point, they went for the jugular, reimagining the beloved South Park boys, Cartman, Stan, Butters, and Kenny, not as the crude, satirical, chaotic little Colorado kids we know and love, but as adult women of color, played up in exaggerated parody to show exactly how ridiculous it looks when studios erase the heart of a story and replace it with performative identity politics. And the result is brutal, hilarious, and deeply uncomfortable for the exact people it was meant to target. Because no one is safe when South Park decides you're in their crosshairs, and in this case, the prime target is Rachel Zegler, the controversial young actress cast as Disney's new Snow White, who has become the lightning rod for everything wrong with this so-called modern rebranding of classic fairy tales. A woman who in interview after interview has revealed not only her disdain for the original story, not only her arrogance in dismissing what made the character iconic, but also her entitlement in assuming that she alone holds the authority to dictate what Snow White should mean to audiences in 2024, and fans have recoiled, horrified, because here is a woman given one of the most iconic roles in cinematic history, the very first Disney princess, the cornerstone of the studio's legacy, and instead of embracing it with grace, respect, and humility, she trashes it, mocking the romance, dismissing the prince, belittling the love story that defined generations of little girls' imaginations, and even laughing about how his role might be completely cut from the film as though it were a joke, as though it were Hollywood whimsy, as though the audience's connection to these characters and stories was disposable, irrelevant, and replaceable with whatever shallow feminist narrative the studio thought would play best on Twitter. And South Park pounced on this arrogance, holding up a mirror not only to Zegler, but to Disney itself, showing in blunt satirical force what happens when a studio cares more about checking diversity boxes than telling good stories, and the internet exploded, because while Zegler continues to complain about costumes, snacks, and conditions on set, South Park has crystallized the anger of millions who feel betrayed, ridiculed, and alienated by Disney's choices. And the more the studio insists that audiences are wrong, outdated, or even bigoted for resisting these changes, the more people tune out, cancel subscriptions, and laugh at the parody. Because when satire cuts this deep, it isn't just comedy, it's prophecy. And the fact that Comedy Central once again gave Trey Parker and Matt Stone free rein to eviscerate Disney proves that the cultural tide is turning, that audiences are no longer afraid to call out what they see as hollow pandering. Because Disney didn't just stop with Snow White, they've made similar choices in The Little Mermaid, in Marvel, in Star Wars, and in every other branch of their empire, bending stories until they break, erasing romance, erasing archetypes, erasing the very essence that made them timeless and replacing it with shallow virtue signaling. But South Park's Panderverse strips that down to its bones and shows how absurd it looks when characters are arbitrarily swapped, when identity replaces personality, when representation replaces storytelling. And so the fallout only intensified in the days following the release of South Park's Into the Panderverse. Because what began as a single satirical episode quickly transformed into a cultural earthquake, rippling across YouTube, TikTok, X, formerly Twitter, Instagram, and Reddit, where fans, critics, commentators, and ordinary viewers all united in a chorus of laughter, outrage, and vindication, as clips of Cartman, reimagined as a woman of color, or Stan gender-swapped into an absurd parody character, spread like wildfire, racking up millions of views and sparking endless debates, with memes mocking Disney's pandering approach, dominating timelines and hashtags like Just Panderverse, Not My Snow White, and Just Go Woke Go Broke climbing into global trends. And the more Disney tried to ignore it, the more viral the backlash became, because audiences sensed the panic, they sensed the tension, they sensed the desperation of a studio that once commanded cultural dominance but was now caught flat-footed, mocked not by fringe critics, but by one of the most successful satirical shows in television history. And at the center of this storm was Rachel Zegler, a 22-year-old actress who had once been celebrated as the breakout star of Spielberg's West Side Story, but was now the unwilling or perhaps all too willing poster child of Disney's cultural war, her every word dissected, her interviews replayed, her tone of voice ridiculed, as countless YouTube commentators and cultural critics compiled supercuts of her most dismissive statements. From "the love story doesn't matter" to "I deserve to be paid for every hour I spend in a dress," painting her as entitled, ungrateful and arrogant, and whether fair or not, perception is everything in Hollywood. And Rachel's perception was tanking faster than even Disney's PR army could repair, because instead of embracing the legacy of Snow White with gratitude, she had alienated the very fans who once might have defended her. And now those fans were sharing South Park's parody as proof of everything they had feared about the direction of Disney's remakes. A parody that did not just ridicule the casting choice, but called into question the entire strategy of identity-swapping beloved characters as a lazy substitute for real diversity. And this was not the first time South Park had taken aim at Disney, not by a long shot. Because Trey Parker and Matt Stone had a long history of targeting the Mouse House, whether through the infamous Mickey Mouse caricature in the Jonas Brothers episode, the ruthless mockery of the Star Wars sequel,